Vanessa Motta and Jason Giles just found guilty on all counts. The first assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Simpson talking right now.
Jason Giles abused their positions and violated their oaths as attorneys. Ms. Stolbert lied to the FBI agents during the course of an investigation. Together, these people perpetrated a years-long fraud and attempted to cover up that fraud through their actions. We want to thank the jury for their careful consideration of this case. This case was the result of years of hard work, of dedication, and of cooperation between the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Criminal Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, and the FBI. We also want to particularly thank, in this case, the Louisiana State Police, the New Orleans Police Department, and the Metropolitan Crime Commission. One thing I want to make eminently clear: insurance fraud is not a victimless crime. It is a crime that destroys businesses, impacts lives, and disrupts our society. The Department of Justice and the FBI will do everything in their power to root out and eradicate fraud wherever it occurs. I would like to especially thank the hardworking and talented prosecutors who took this case from beginning to end and brought the justice that it so richly deserves. Specifically, I'd like to thank and highlight Matt Payne, Ryan McLaren, Brian Kleber, and Mary Catherine Kaufman. Now, we have two additional defendants in this matter who are slated to stand trial in August of this year. So as a result of that, we are rather limited on making further comments. Thank you.
Does this conviction send a message to the legal community that if lawyers step out of bounds, there are going to be consequences?
It absolutely does. This is an example of the worst of what lawyers can be but shouldn't be. And to me, this is a glaring example of what happens when lawyers push the boundaries in a way that it was never intended by the Code of Ethics or the Code of Professional Responsibility. So the answer is yes.
You all asked that they be taken into custody. They were both cuffed in the courtroom, which is a rare move for white-collar defendants, but you felt they were flight risk and or threats to the community.
I think based on the evidence that we had adduced, both pretrial and trial, those were absolutely justified rulings by the judge in terms of detention.
As a lawyer yourself, can you talk about, I guess, your reaction as to another lawyer committing these crimes?
People are already so cynical, in many cases justifiably, about lawyers. And that's why our popularity is about as fun, as high as used car salesmen, morticians. This is repellent to me, because for those who try to do it right, who try to play the game honestly and with integrity, they get besmirched by behavior and criminality like this, and it's upsetting.
There were other attorneys who were implicated in this trial who were not charged. Can you talk about your decision-making, your office's decision-making in not charging those attorneys?
Now, I'm going to focus really on what we've done today on this trial and the results of the tremendous work of these prosecutors.
And Mr. Simpson, you say that insurance fraud is not a victimless crime. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know that, y'all have said that this has raised our insurance prices, and when I say our, I mean Louisiana residents across the state.
It can be a game changer for many people who lose their jobs, say, for instance, in the trucking industry. If they're a small trucking business and they get sued out of existence and they have to let people go. So people who might have been with them for years have lost a job. And what happens thereafter can be a pretty tragic road for certain people. So the tendrils and the effects of this sort of fraud really spread far and wide and have, I'd say, far-reaching effects in many more senses of personal life as well as business life. It's driven so many businesses out of New Orleans. It has absolutely elevated our insurance rates beyond comprehension. So yes, it's a damage. It's a tremendous harm to people and businesses.
One more question, please.
What are the challenges in trying a case that rests on charges involving such complex financial crimes before a jury of people who aren't lawyers and who might not understand the statutes?
I think the brilliance of these lawyers was that they made the complex simple and comprehensible, and I would say emotional, because there's a huge emotional human component to this. And once you're able to make something that is fraught with complexities, detail, into a very human, understandable story, you've done a great job as a prosecutor.
They were defiant to the end. Did they get what they deserve, Michael?
To next trial.
Folks, I think
Okay.
that's all I can do. Thank you so much.
First Assistant U.S. Attorney